Hey, what's going on, guys? I just wanted to chime in this morning and say hello. I know it's early, so a lot of you may not be up yet. But anyway, so I'm traveling today, and me and my family are traveling back to Chicago. We were in Atlanta for a couple weeks, but I was actually gone on the road half the time. But anyway, we are headed back, and I was reading today something that I wanted to kind of address online, just because I think that it's great. And I've been fighting for this for damn near 30 years now. I guess 25 years. And basically, Texas Tech, I don't know if y'all saw this, but Texas Tech is offering all of its new players $25,000 name, image, and likeness deals. They, according to CBS, I'm going to read some of this to you. It says that Texas Tech, a collective at Texas Tech, is promising to sign every scholarship player and the number of walk-ons to $25,000 name, image, and likeness deals. They're called NIL contracts. The Matador Club, a collective run by 5 Texas Tech graduates, has proposed signing 100 players. So I guess 100 players, that's about, $2.5 million. All 85 scholarship players and 15 walk-ons to one-year contracts that could be renewed heading into next season. More than 1,000 people have donated to the collective, according to founding member Cody Campbell. Quote, collectives have done a number of things, Campbell told the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. You see some of them paying large amounts to individual players. You see others doing different things. But what we want to do really is support the entire program. This is kind of a base salary for the guys. They're not going to be restricted from doing any other NIL stuff with anybody else. In fact, we're going to encourage them to help them do that. Miami players were offered a contract of $500 a month by a local fitness chain last year. BYU's walk-ons received an NIL scholarship that covers tuition by a protein bar, Built Brands. While scholarship players can receive $1,000, the Texas Collective also offered $50,000 to offensive linemen through an alleged charity endeavor named Horns with Heart. However, Texas Tech ranks perhaps the biggest offering for a full roster of players, with expenses adding up to $2.5 million. In exchange, players will be required to do community service around Lubbock and other West Texas cities. What do y'all think about that? I mean, I think it's a good start. But here's the deal, right? First off, I'm really happy about it. I'm really happy that it's going in that direction, because I think it's crazy that we think that it's okay to put these athletes in one of the most dangerous jobs imaginable and expect them to not be compensated. I've been a college professor for almost 30 years, and I've taught at University of Kentucky, Indiana University, Syracuse University, schools with big-time athletic programs. They make a killing off these kids. That $2.5 million is nothing compared to the amount of money they make from winning national championships. Just to give you a context, Texas Tech they're spending $200 million on a new stadium. $200 million on a new stadium. So it seems to me that if you are spending $200 million on a new stadium and you spend just a measly $2.5 million a year to get the best players in the country, because everybody's going to want to sign with Texas Tech now, that's really good. That's a good expense. There are coaches and administrators that are expecting all kinds of money from the university. So the idea that somehow athletes getting some of that money is bad or it's a crime, it's ridiculous. Second thing I'm going to say about that is I think it's going to get bigger. I think that they're lucky. They're lucky as hell that you can sign these athletes. If the NCAA were a professional sports league and they were allowed to negotiate contracts the way NBA players can, the way Amazon workers can, the way you and I can when we take a job, because this is a job. This is a full-time job. I tutored these athletes. I taught these athletes. I was friends with these athletes. It's a full-time job, except it's harder than a full-time job because you can get killed on the job. So there should be hazard pay attached also. If they had to pay them what they were worth, they would be paying athletes easily. They would have several athletes making $5, even $10 million a year, because the college sports makes more money than the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball, all those on a sort of per game sort of basis. March Madness is one of the most valuable athletic properties in all of sports, not just all the college sports, but all the sports. So the idea that you can do something like this and operate literally on unpaid labor is absolutely crazy. So I've been writing about this for years. When I used to write about this at the University of Kentucky, when I was in graduate school, the coaches, Rick Pitino and his staff, this is what the players told me. They told me that the coaches said, don't read his articles. And I'm like, why would they not want you to have information? I'm not telling you to go rob a bank. I'm not telling you to go beat up white people. I'm not telling you to go and hurt somebody or do something illegal. I'm telling you that you deserve compensation for your labor. And so the truth is that the most dangerous type of black man in the world is not a thug. It's not a criminal. It's an intelligent black man. It's a man that's going to bring ideas to the table that are going to cause us to stand up for what we deserve. And also, here's another thing too. This is about racism. They will tickle your butt crack all day long and give you all kinds of symbolism every day. They will be happy to tell you that Black Lives Matter. They will be happy to tell you that they're not racist. They'll be happy to tell you that you're a wonderful person. They'll be happy to tell you that you're cute. But when you start asking for the money, that's when the conversation changes. Because that's when you've gone from having a little boy conversation to the big boy conversation. When you've gone from being at the kiddie table to trying to sit at the grown-up table. When you went from asking for any scraps and crumbs you could get to asking for the big piece of chicken. When you get to the point where you're asking for the big piece of chicken, you can't ask anymore. You can't ask for the big piece of chicken and receive it. You got to take the big piece of chicken. So the athletes have to take it. The athletes have to protest. They have to go and file lawsuits. They have to go do all kinds of things to demand the pay that they deserve. And I think $25,000 is a steal. I think I think in 5 years, $25,000 will be nothing. And what's going on right now, this is the reason coaches hate the idea of athletes getting compensated, is because now they actually have to compete to get these athletes. They got to pay money. There was already an arms race in terms of building more expensive stadiums and all this other stuff. Like one company, one school built $100 million facility, the other one will build a $200 million facility. So that part of the arms race is already there. Now there's a new arms race. It's not just how much you pay for your facilities. It's not just how much you pay for your coaches. Now the arms race is how much you actually compensate the athletes to get them to actually come to the school and get your stadiums filled up. A lot of these kids they're coming out the hood. Their mothers are on welfare. You cannot tell me that is normal or that is ethical. That your son is making $100 million, or $10 million. Let's say $10, $20 million. $100 million is an exaggeration, but $10, $20 million for some school, and his mother can't even pay the rent. That rule only applies for black people. They only think that's okay when they're doing that to black people, because in their mind, you should be happy to get whatever we give you, you should be happy to get that. No, it's nonsense. So when I look at guys like Nick Saban and Alabama, and I just admire, what they do with their college football program. I admire what Ohio State does. I'm an Ohio State Buckeye. I graduated from Ohio State. But at the end of the day, those guys deserve to be paid like everybody else. Every other American in this country, when you do a job, give me a yes or no. When you do a job, yes or no, answer me. When you do a job and and it's a dangerous job, do you expect to be paid for that? Like, do you expect to be compensated? Imagine if they were sending you off to war and refused to give you any compensation for your family. Or they said, well, we're going to give you 5 books. We're going to give you 5 books and a scholarship. That would be crazy. Every other working person in America with a full-time job or even a part-time job expects to be paid for their labor. It's only in college sports that we somehow think, oh, well, that's bad. That's going to ruin the integrity of the sports. Well, what you're doing is you're treating your athletes like zoo animals. It's like a circus. They are there to entertain you, and you're thinking about, well, this is going to mess up my entertainment. Well, yeah, but what about his life? What about that athlete and his family, his mother and all this other stuff? It's crazy. And so, again, I've seen the system from all perspectives. They refused. The NCAA, I've been on CNN talking about this many times, and the NCAA always refused to come on CNN and debate me about this. And the reason they refused to debate me is because they knew they were wrong. They knew they cannot win. You cannot. It's like debating a child molester. Like, is it okay to molest children? They're not going to debate you about that. They're just going to keep doing their little dirt in the dark. They're going to do their little molestation in the dark. They're not going to try to publicly debate whether or not it's ethical to molest a child, because everybody knows it's unethical. So when you talk about whether or not it's ethical to exploit college athletes, they can't defend that because they can't defend it against the backdrop of coaches and administrators and commentators making millions of dollars a year. They can't defend it against the backdrop of universities raking in $1 billion a year off mostly black athletes. They can't defend that against the backdrop of major corporations spending more for ads during March Madness than they spend during the damn Super Bowl sometimes. Right? They can't defend that. So instead of trying to defend the hypocrisy, they just sort of quietly operate and hope that nobody notices. And so the reason that they wouldn't debate me on it, and I know exactly why. It's okay. I mean, I get it, right? If I were them, I wouldn't debate me either. I would just keep collecting my money. The 3 reasons they could not debate me and would not debate me on CNN on this topic, and it was several times. CNN would say, well, we called the NCAA to ask them to send a representative, and they refused to do so, or they couldn't. They were unavailable, whatever. Yeah, okay. The 3 reasons was one. I'm a finance professor. I know more about money than they do. So I know the dynamic. I know the financial dynamics. I know how much money's being made, where the money's going. So you can't come and say something like, well, we can't afford to pay the athletes. We just don't have enough money. That was one of their stupid little arguments they would make. And I was like, well, how did you afford to pay the coach $8 million last year? Where'd that money come from? Did you tell him the same thing that you're telling these athletes? Or did you or did you write his check and then tell the athletes that there's no money available? That's a game that people play. The second reason they wouldn't debate me is not only did I know more about money than they do, but also I'm an educator. So I had athletes in my classes. When I was at University of Kentucky, I tutored athletes, and I taught math at the University of Kentucky at Ohio State. I had athletes in my classes at Syracuse University. I had athletes in my classes, and I saw what toll it was taking on these poor guys. I saw them changing their major. They couldn't. One guy told me, he was a really good football player at Kentucky. He told me, he said, I wanted to be an engineer, but they told me that if I choose engineering as my major, I'll never get any playing time, and I think I can go to the NFL. So I don't really want to. I don't want to mess up, things with the coaches. And I said, you're supposed to be a student athlete, not an athlete student. This is crazy. So he picked some bullshit major because he knew that wouldn't interfere with his football schedule. So they were treating him like a professional athlete. They would tell the athletes, well, you got to be a professional. It's important to be a professional. There was another example of Syracuse University. I had a quarterback who was in my class, and I was teaching a really hard class at Syracuse. I don't remember what the class was called, but it was a tough class. And I got an email from some coach, like his representative, because he's an athlete, he can't send his own emails. They gotta represent him and send emails to the professors on his behalf. So they send me an email and they say he's gonna miss the first week of class because he's got a big game in Utah that he has to prepare for. And I'm like, okay. So you're taking him out of the first week of class. Like, you do know he's probably going to fail now, because anybody who misses a whole week of my class is probably not going to get a good grade. And then, and I didn't say anything. I was like, whatever. Then the next week, they're like, oh, he has to miss another week of class because he's got another big game out in Los Angeles. And I just wrote back to the coach, and I said, I think it was a black coach actually, because he actually I think got offended by what I said. I said, you ought to be ashamed of what you're doing to these athletes. This is crazy as hell. Like, why are you're taking him out of class? You're setting him up to fail. He's not going to learn anything except how to throw a football. And you know as well as I do that Syracuse University football players don't go to the NFL. And if they get there, they stay for about 10 minutes. I said, why in the hell would you set him up to fail? Why would you get him to dedicate the most important part of his life to football when you know good as well as I do there ain't no career for him coming in football? He thinks that there is because he's 18 and he's stupid. He's fucking stupid. I'm sorry. I no disrespect to 18-year-olds, but you don't know shit. You're still growing up. Seriously, the things I did when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, involving academics, sitting in that damn library 8 hours a day, busting my ass in classes and getting straight A's, that's the stuff that pays me to this day. I make money now at the age of 51 from things I did when I was 21, 20 years old. That's what literally I live off of, the things I did when I was 20, 21. And if I had spent the same amount of time I spent studying, throwing footballs and dribbling basketballs, I'd be broke. I'd be sitting on the corner trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. I'd be struggling right now. So the reality is that you ain't getting no money out of sports. They convince all these poor black boys to dedicate their whole life to sports. Also, they can sit there and just be a complete waste to their families in some cases. I mean, seriously, the whole black community is filled with a bunch of ex-athletes, washed-up athletes who are 30 years old, who feel like they're past their prime because their glory days were in high school. And it drives me crazy. Dedicate your time to education. Dedicate your time to learning how to build wealth. Dedicate your time to learning how to be a good father and to be a good husband and to be a good leader in your community. Put your energy into that. Put as much energy into that as you spend putting into basketball, football, and trying to play a sport that ain't never going to pay you a nickel. These sports make billions of dollars. And the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, they do well. LeBron James is a billionaire because LeBron James was born 6'8", 200 and something pounds, with the quickness of a cat, with incredible dexterity and coordination that 99.9999999% of black boys will never have. But yet they parade LeBron around on TV and making every little black boy, every little 5'7" kid think he's going to be the next LeBron. How the hell are you going to be the next LeBron when you're not even 6 feet tall, dude? Come on. Seriously, pick a better hustle. Pick a smarter hustle. If you're going to play sports, use sports as a leveraging system to leverage you into the things that are actually going to get you paid and make you successful. Sports, I was a great athlete when I was a kid. I was the fastest on the track team. I kid you not, we had a runoff for the relay team. I raced all the fastest guys on the football team. All the fastest sprinters on the football team came out to track practice to try to compete for the relay spot. I raced them all. I beat every one of them. I had muscles. I was good at football and track. Basketball, I was okay, but still, I had athletic ability. But when you compare me to those guys who were at big-time D1 universities, I cannot compete. You compare me to guys in the NFL, I can't compete with that. That's an insane, almost alien level of talent that those guys have. And even those guys that have alien levels of talent, most of them don't make it. Most of them don't make it. Do you know how many college All-Americans that go to the NFL literally last for like a year and a half? I think the average NFL career is about 2.5 to 3 years or something. So the NFL actually stands for not for long. But during that time, you're doing everything you can to hold on to this dream that you have, right? You're doing everything. You're taking steroids, which are going to fuck up your body. You're taking all these painkillers because you're afraid to tell your coaches that you're injured. You're going through everything that Dr. Myron Rolle went through. Shout out to Dr. Myron Rolle. He sent me a copy of his book. And he's now a neurosurgeon. Myron Rolle was an All-American at Florida State. He got invited to play in the NFL, and he stunned those white folks because he said, my brain is more important than me catching footballs for you. So he literally went off and became a Rhodes Scholar for 2 years and came back and still was a star for the Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Myron Rolle's a bad boy. I love the way Myron worked it because he didn't neglect his athletic ability. He didn't throw sports away. He didn't say, oh, I'm anti-sports. He said, yeah, I'll play football, but I'm black first. I'm Myron first. I'm family first. I'm going to take care of me before I take care of you. I'm going to do what's best for my family before I do what's best for your family. I'm going to take care of my brain before I let you exploit my body. And Myron then, so he went to the NFL, had a great career, left the NFL before the CTE sets in, the brain damage, right? And now Dr. Myron Rolle is becoming a surgeon. I think he's at Harvard or something like that. And so my point is to say that, you can't let these people shape the narrative of your life. They will screw you. They will absolutely screw you. So the 3 reasons, just go back to finish my point. I gave 2 out of 3 points. The 3 reasons they wouldn't debate me, the NCAA would never debate me on this topic on CNN was 1, I have a PhD in finance, so I know exactly where the money's at. I know how to count. Number 2, I was an educator, so I was right on the front lines in terms of dealing with these kids in my classes and seeing them missing class because they got football practice or they're watching their grades fall because of the pressure of day-to-day participation in sports. The 3rd reason they wouldn't debate me is because I'm black. Because I'm black. They knew from the very jump that there are massive, 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 and very uncomfortable racial undertones to the fact that the NCAA exploits black athletes on the level that they do. They literally make $1 billion off the black community every year, but yet they come around and they feed you all this symbolism. Well, Black Lives Matter, right? And you believe all that nonsense, but when you show up and you say, well, Black Lives Matter, then write a damn check. Then, we don't have any money in the budget, but Black Lives Matter. And if you're dumb enough to believe that, then I can't help you. I don't know what to say to you. At the end of the day, what you would typically find, and this is me speaking as a finance PhD, I know this stuff at a level that your financial advisor, I train people like that. So this is high level shit. I need you to understand this. Money is a different conversation from everything else. A lot of people will gladly blow smoke up your butt. They will feed your ego. They will tell you that you're wonderful and beautiful and that black is amazing. As long as you don't talk about the money. That's why politicians won't even say the word reparations. That's why that whole Black Lives Matter movement happened and not one nickel of those billions of dollars that floated around during that time. Not one nickel of that ended up in your pocket. That's why none of that. That's why you didn't see any massive development in the hood. You didn't see any black businesses really benefit except for a couple that were connected to white folks. You didn't see any of that because the money is a different conversation. That is a grown-up conversation. And that's a conversation that you cannot have if you're expecting your adversary to be your friend. Let me give you, and this ain't just for black people. This is just generally true for capitalism. Let me give you an example. Starbucks. Starbucks is the wokest corporation that there is. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. LGBT. Yeah, we'll put the LGBT flag in every Starbucks location. Let us know to let everyone know that we love the gay community. Feminism. Yeah, women rock. The right to choose. They're declaring war on women's bodies. Roe versus Wade, right? They'll do all of that. But do you know what happened when the workers got together and said, we're going to form labor unions so we can get more pay? Suddenly, Starbucks got real Donald Trumpish. They got real Republican real quick. They got super conservative very fast. They suddenly became union busters. They were shutting down entire Starbucks stores. They were literally doing the same type of stuff that I knew a guy who had 15 kids. If you're one of those people, please stop doing that. Like you're literally harming your community. You can't be pro-black and be splattering babies everywhere. You're hurting children. But this guy had 15 kids, and you know what he would do every time they sued him in child support court? He would literally quit his job. Anybody know anybody like that? I don't know. I'm sure you do. Everybody knows somebody, at least one guy like that. This dude would literally quit his job because he did not want to pay child support. So Starbucks was doing the same thing. Starbucks would literally shut down a whole store just so they don't have to pay the workers more money. So the store can't form a union. So the point of the matter is that the conversations about the money, that's a different conversation. That's not a conversation about stroking your ego or making you feel good or feeding you symbolism. They can feed you symbolism all day because talk is cheap. In fact, you guys may not know this, but when there's a book I have the students in the Black Business School read called An Empire of Their Own, How the Jews Invented Hollywood. It's a very good book. It's not anti-Semitic. I don't get into any of that. I don't believe any of those things. I don't believe in being anti-anybody. I think you could be pro-black without being anti-anybody. But the book is really a remarkable reflection on how this community came together and built one of the biggest industries on earth. I'm not even mad at them for it. I know about the agendas. Some of these movies I think are crazy what they're trying to put on people, but at the same time, it's theirs, and I respect that. I respect anybody that fights for what's theirs. So one of the things that they talk about is that when in the 1940s, the movie executives didn't want to pay the actors more money. The actors wanted more money and all that, and the writers wanted more money. So they said, we don't want to really pay them more money because that's expensive. So you know what they did? They said, let's invent something called the Academy Awards, and let's give them these awards. Let's feed their ego, because it doesn't cost us anything. All we got to do is create a bunch of trophies and hand them out and tell them how wonderful they are, and this will be a replacement for money, literally. And that's kind of how society works. If you ever have a conversation about the money, that's a different conversation than a conversation about symbolism. So when you talk to these politicians, I encourage you, pay close attention to the difference between substantive discussions versus discussions that are symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism around. Symbolism may never really paid your bills. Symbolism don't do nothing for you. Like, I know you got excited, for example, when you saw Barack Obama and his beautiful black family and his black wife and everything else. That's really great. But again, that's symbolism. That doesn't really actually add up to real policy. And actually, speaking on that note, I saw just because I'm just reflecting on stuff this morning. I saw this. They showed Key and Peele. Jordan Peele. Me and my wife did a review on his movie Nope, which I didn't love it as much. I like Jordan Peele as a director. I didn't necessarily know how I felt about the movie. The movie didn't really grab me the way the last one did. But anyway, they showed a picture of Jordan Peele's wife, and it was a white woman. Then they showed a picture of Key's wife. It was a white woman. And there was a debate about whether or not that's relevant or not relevant. Now, I have to be careful with these conversations because, I have people in my own family who married outside the race. And actually, the one person I think about, her husband is a very nice guy. He's always been very respectful, so I have nothing against him at all. But at the same time, I really think that it's interesting to see so many people rejecting black women in that way, just like this sort of blanket rejection. And I have to admit, if I was a black woman, I would be very offended by that. I would kind of be like, damn, we're really supporting you. We're really there for you. And when it's time for you to really make the big investment, the real investment in your life, you don't want to invest in black women. And one of my perspectives is that, it's one thing if I talk about who I'll date or who I'll have sex with. I can have sex with a bunch of people. Some people have sex with thousands of people, which is, by the way, it's very dangerous. It's very unhealthy to do that. But there are people that do that. They'll sleep with dozens, maybe hundreds of people, sometimes over 1,000. But so that's not a big deal. But who you marry is the biggest investment that you'll ever make in your life, because you're investing your life in another person. That's a whole nother level of investment. That ain't just talking pro-black. That's literally living pro-black. That's like the difference between supporting the hood versus being willing to be in the hood or to be around black people or whatever, right? So ultimately, I think that when you talk about this marriage thing, I do feel some kind of way when I see so many guys, especially in Hollywood, that like the guy on Insecure. He married a white lady. And it's not like I'm saying he doesn't have a right to marry who he wants. I don't care about his life that much. But it's just weird that there's so many men that just don't want to marry black women. But yet they'll do things that, like, they'll make movies for black women, or they will, or they will go and be activists allegedly for black people. But you got a white spouse. Like, I would honestly not feel the same. I would feel a little bit weird if I had a white wife and I was talking all the shit that I talk online. Like, I talk a lot of stuff that I think I feel like is pro-black. I like being B1. I'm very proud of my community. I want black people to win. I want us to succeed because I believe we are the best. We just have to believe it and know it and see it and do it and execute, right? But so I would feel very strange if I said, yeah, but when I got to the point where I made the biggest investment in my life, I decided to go ahead and go with Becky. I would feel, I would actually understand if black women kind of gave me the side eye, because it's not as if there aren't beautiful black women available. It's not as if that there aren't women that are good people, that are gorgeous, that are loyal as shit, they're good in the bedroom. Like, anything that a white woman can do, black women can do. They can cook, clean, whatever it is you want out of a wife, you can find that in the black community. So when you have guys that just, kind of walk away from that, I think that's a little bit weird. I'm sorry. And I also feel the same way. I think it says something about you and how you think and what you value. Like, so for example, Kamala Harris, it goes to the other gender too. When Kamala Harris, when I saw her husband, Doug, I looked up Doug's bio. I looked up Kamala's bio. And I got a sense that Kamala married Doug because Doug could get her into white places. Not high places, but maybe high white places. He can't get her into high black places, but he can get her into high white places. He's a lawyer, he's a lobbyist or something, or he's very connected and he's got a lot of money. Same thing is true with Judge Ketanji Brown. Ketanji Brown's husband, Jackson Brown, is a seventh generation Harvard graduate, which means he's deeply connected. He can get her into a lot of different spaces. And so in that case, that's what I'm peeping out there, is that your white husband is kind of an investment in what you value, right? You want to be accepted into white spaces, so you get you a white face next to you that's going to open that door for you. And in fact, I've actually gotten it down to a science where when you tell me about a black woman, especially, who has been given some really unique opportunity. Like, I think there was a black lady who became like the head of ABC or something really important at ABC networks. And in my mind, I constantly run these tests. Because remember, I'm a scientist, and in research, you constantly are testing things. So I would say, I bet she has a white husband. So I would look up her husband. Yep, it would be either white or it would be like a white woman. So they would either be married to a white guy or they be gay and married to a white woman. And that tends to like open all these doors of possibility for people when you talk about integration, right? So integration is not devoid of some sorts levels of racial preference. And so I think that it really takes the strongest among us to really understand that building black families and loving black women and loving black men is not just a revolutionary act. It's the ultimate act of black power. If you ever want to piss the world off, just go marry a black woman, love her into the ground, and make a bunch of black babies. Like, that just upsets the apple cart for white supremacy. It's not so loving black people loving each other isn't just a revolutionary act. I remember they used to ban that during slavery. They didn't want black people getting together during slavery. They had specific laws against that. So not only is loving black people and loving each other a revolutionary act, but it's also an act that's really built for the strong. It's built for the strong because when I quite frankly look at what's happened in our community, there's a lot of trauma in our community, and we re-traumatize each other. I can tell you, before I got with my wife, I met a lot of black women who were gorgeous on the outside, had all the college degrees, worked hard and all this other stuff, but some of them were damaged. And the worst thing is when you deal with somebody who's damaged, they don't even know that they're damaged. They think that all their shit is in order. Everything is perfect. And I encourage you, if you're one of those people, just please stop that. Stop thinking that your shit don't stink. If your life is not adding up to what you want it to be, that means there's something probably that you need to kind of adjust and deal with and confront. That's why I'm a big believer in therapy. So there's a lot of damaged black men, a lot of damaged black women. Like, I think that a lot of women don't understand how that affects you when you never had a father. I literally talked not too long ago to a black woman who told me about her father. He was an alcoholic who beat his mother, and then he committed suicide when she was 14. And it's interesting because she's not able to quite connect the fact that that this might relate to why she and all her sisters all got divorced, right? Because you never really learned to trust a black man. Right? I mean, think about this. Your father is the first man you're supposed to trust. That's daddy, right? And if daddy is all over the place doing crazy stuff, or you dealt with terrible things with daddy, that's going to stay with you for life. So my argument is that those of us who commit to loving other black people, it's hard, right? Sometimes black men supporting each other is hard because some of these dudes out here will kill you faster than the Klansmen. You know what I'm talking about. I know a lot of brothers who've been killed, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know one single black man who's been killed by a cop. I don't know one single black man who has been killed by a KKK member, but I know several black men who've been shot by another black man. Let's keep it 100, right? So I think that we don't have those honest conversations. And when you never have an honest conversation, you will never get to an honest answer. If you don't ask the right questions, you will never find the right solutions. And so I encourage you to ask the right questions, no matter where they lie, and find the right solutions that work for you and make good choices that are going to help you achieve whatever goal you have for yourself. So that's what I was thinking about today. This is what was on my mind. I know I went into a couple of different directions, but it was just on my brain. So I thought I would pop in early in the morning and say hi to everybody. If you disagree with what I said, or if I offended you in any way, just get used to it. I'm always going to challenge your thinking. And it's not because I'm always right. It's just because I want to share a perspective that hopefully will get us to all think and talk and kind of share things with each other. All right. So by the way, if you're on Instagram, hit the link in the bio. We've got some stuff going on. I know this weekend I'll be in Detroit. We're having the Black Wealth Builders Summit in Detroit. Herb Strather is hosting that event. Herb Strather and Gary Shelton have done over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion worth of business and real estate deals. So these are brilliant guys that I love and respect. I love listening to them. I love talking to them because it's very important to understand that if you want to make money, you got to talk to people that know how to make it. A lot of us, it's insane to me. Again, I'm speaking as a financial expert here. I spent 30 years studying this stuff. It's fascinating to me how people will take financial advice and stock market advice from people that know nothing about money or stock markets and have no money. It's very weird. Like, I guess because you know the person, you trust them, but it doesn't make any sense. It's like taking relationship advice from people that have never had a healthy relationship or people that are single all the time. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You take advice from people that are successful. So Herb and Gary, their strength is that they know how to succeed. They know how to win. They know how to make money. So anyway, if you want to join us, just click the link in the bio. You can go to boycewatkins.com, either one, and you can join us in Detroit. And I'll be there for the weekend, and you can shake my hand and we can talk and everything else. So that's pretty much it. That's what's going on in my life right now. There's some other stuff happening, but I'll tell you guys about that later. I got to get to work. So have a good day, everybody. Love you.